Imagine discovering that your teacher, the one you trusted, was secretly filming students in class. Would you stay silent out of fear or risk everything to tell the truth? This is how I found the courage to expose him. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to expose someone, especially not a teacher. But what I discovered inside my high school changed everything. It all started last semester. I was a junior, struggling through advanced classes, trying to keep my grades high enough to get into a decent college. Like everyone else, I had my favorite teachers and the ones I couldn't stand. But then there was Mr. Grant. He wasn't exactly well-liked, but he wasn't hated either. He was weird, quiet, awkward, and always carried this old-looking briefcase that no one had ever seen him open. He taught history, and his lectures were boring enough to make anyone fall asleep. Still, he never gave us a reason to be suspicious. Not until one day when I noticed something off. It was a Tuesday morning, and I was one of the first students to enter his classroom. Usually he'd already be at his desk, scribbling notes or setting up his computer. But that day, he wasn't there yet. I dropped my backpack on my chair, yawned, and stretched. That's when I noticed something unusual. On the bookshelf near the window, there was this small black object pointing toward the desks. At first, I thought it was some kind of Wi-Fi router or maybe a speaker, but when I looked closer, my stomach tightened. It was a camera. A small lens-shaped camera, tucked between two stacks of books, almost invisible unless you were really paying attention. My first thought was, no way. It can't be what I think it is. Maybe it was part of the school security system. Maybe I was just imagining things. But the way it was angled directly toward where we sat made my skin crawl. When Mr. Grant finally walked in, I quickly sat down and tried to act normal. But all through class, I couldn't focus. Every time I glanced at that shelf, I imagined the camera watching us, watching me. I told myself I was being paranoid. Schools had cameras everywhere, right? It was normal for safety reasons. But something about this didn't feel normal. Why hide it behind books? Why not tell us it was there? When the bell rang, I grabbed my stuff and left as fast as I could. The following week, I noticed another weird thing. Mr. Grant carried his briefcase like it was glued to his hand. He never left it unattended, not even when he went to the teacher's lounge for coffee. One day, he almost dropped it in the hallway. When he caught it, he looked around nervously, like the world might end if anyone saw what was inside. That's when I started connecting dots. The camera, the briefcase, the nervous behavior. Something wasn't right. I finally broke down and told my best friend Lena about what I saw. We were eating lunch in the cafeteria when I leaned closer and whispered, "Hey, I think Mr. Grant has a hidden camera in his classroom." Lena raised an eyebrow. "A camera? For what?" "I don't know, but I saw it on the bookshelf, and he acts super weird with that briefcase of his. I think he might be recording us." She laughed at first, shaking her head. "You watch too many crime shows. Teachers don't just record students. That's illegal." "I'm serious," I said. My voice cracked because I knew how insane it sounded. "I saw it, and I can't stop thinking about it." Lena's smile faded when she realized I wasn't joking. "Okay, if you're right, that's seriously messed up. But how can we know for sure?" That was the question I couldn't get out of my head. I couldn't just ignore it anymore. Every time I sat in that classroom, my stomach twisted in knots. What if someone was watching us? What if Mr. Grant had recordings of every girl, every private moment, every time someone bent down to pick up a pencil? The thought made me sick. So one morning, I decided to stay after class. I pretended to take extra notes as everyone else left. When the room was almost empty, I casually walked to the bookshelf. The camera was still there. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would explode. I stretched my hand toward it, but before I could touch it, I heard his voice. "Can I help you with something?" I froze. Mr. Grant was standing by his desk, staring at me with sharp, suspicious eyes. No, sorry," I stammered. "I was just looking for a book." His gaze lingered on me for a moment too long before he forced a smile. "Well, the library has plenty. Run along now." I grabbed my backpack and rushed out, my legs shaking. That night I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, my mind replaying his voice, his stare, that fake smile. The next day, I came up with a plan. If no one believed me, I had to get proof. I borrowed Lena's phone and set it to record video. I told her to distract Mr. Grant after class so I could sneak back into the room. When the moment came, my heart raced like I was committing a crime. Lena asked him about homework, and while he was distracted, I slipped to the bookshelf, pulled out my phone, and filmed the camera. Up close, I could see the tiny red light blinking. It was definitely recording. My chest tightened. I had proof. But what I didn't know yet was that I was about to uncover something way worse than just a classroom camera. That same week, Mr. Grant made a mistake. He left his briefcase on his desk when he stepped out to talk to another teacher. For once, it was unguarded. I knew it was risky, but my curiosity and fear pushed me forward. I opened the latch just enough to peek inside. What I saw made my blood run cold. Inside were dozens of SD cards, labeled with dates. And not just from our class. Some went back months. Some had labels like girls' locker room and cafeteria. I slammed the briefcase shut and stumbled back, my hands shaking. This wasn't just paranoia. It was real. Mr. Grant was secretly recording students. And I was the only one who knew. From that moment, everything changed. I couldn't concentrate in class. I couldn't laugh with my friends. Every time I looked at Mr. Grant, I felt sick. I knew I had to do something. But what if no one believed me? What if he found out I knew? He was a teacher, an adult. People trusted him. Who would they believe, him or a 16-year-old kid? Lena kept pressuring me. You have to tell someone. Go to the principal. Go to the police. But every time I thought about it, I froze. If I messed this up, he'd know it was me, and who knows what he might do. Still, deep down, I knew she was right. I had to expose him, no matter the risk. That was the moment my normal teenage life ended. Because once I made the choice to fight back, I stepped into a dangerous game, one where every move I made could either save us or destroy me. And I had no idea just how far Mr. Grant would go to protect his secret. When I thought the nightmare was finally over, I was wrong. Exposing Mr. Miller didn't just bring me relief, it brought chaos. The police had taken him away, the hidden cameras had been confiscated, and our school was buzzing with shock. Parents were furious, students were scared, and the administration was trying to keep things under control. But the aftermath was almost worse than the discovery. At first, people treated me like a hero. Some of my classmates came up to me, saying things like, "You're so brave," or "Thank you for speaking up." Even kids I barely talked to were suddenly smiling at me in the hallways. For a moment, I felt proud. I thought I had done the right thing, and that maybe finally I could breathe. But then came the whispers. Not everyone was happy about what I did. Some students started saying I exaggerated the whole thing, that I just wanted attention. A few even claimed that Mr. Miller had always been a nice teacher and that I ruined his life. One girl who used to be close to him told me straight to my face, "You probably edited those videos or something." Why would Mr. Miller ever do that? I froze. I didn't know how to respond. It was like people didn't want to believe the truth because believing it meant admitting someone they trusted had betrayed them. And then, things got scarier. A few days after Mr. Miller's arrest, I started getting anonymous messages on my phone. The first one was simple. "You should have stayed quiet." My heart nearly stopped when I read it. At first I thought it was a sick joke from one of the students who supported Mr. Miller. But then more messages followed. "Snitches, get what's coming. You ruined everything. Watch your back." I didn't recognize the number. My hands were shaking every time I unlocked my phone. I showed the text to my mom, and she was furious. She wanted to take my phone straight to the police, but part of me was terrified. What if reporting it only made things worse? What if whoever was sending those messages was closer than I thought? Still, my mom didn't give me a choice. We went to the police station and I handed over my phone. The officer told us they would look into it, but until then, I should be careful. How was I supposed to be careful when I felt like I was being watched every second? One evening, I was in my room trying to finish homework when I noticed something strange. My laptop's camera, the tiny green light, flickered on for a second, then off. I froze. I hadn't opened Zoom, hadn't touched anything. My stomach dropped. I slammed my laptop shut, my mind racing. Was someone hacking me? I grabbed my phone and called my best friend Ava. She listened carefully, then whispered, "What if it's connected to Mr. Miller?" The thought made my blood run cold. He was in custody, but what if he hadn't been working alone? What if there was someone else at school helping him, someone still out there? The next day at school, I couldn't focus. Every teacher's face looked suspicious to me. Every hallway felt dangerous. That's when I noticed Mr. Clark, the assistant gym coach. He was standing near the locker rooms, holding his phone up, almost like he was recording. When he saw me looking, he quickly shoved it into his pocket. My stomach twisted. Was I overthinking? Maybe, but I couldn't shake the memory of Mr. Miller. Everyone thought he was harmless too, until I found the truth. So instead of ignoring it, I decided to investigate. That afternoon, I pretended to forget my backpack in the gym so I could slip back in after practice. The locker room was empty, the halls quiet. My heart was pounding as I crept toward Mr. Clark's office. The door was locked, but then I noticed his bag left on the chair outside. I know I shouldn't have done it, but I opened it. Inside there was a laptop, and on the screen's background was a folder labeled Private. My hands shook as I opened it. And there it was again, hidden footage of students, of my classmates, of me. I nearly dropped the laptop. It felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath me. Another teacher, another betrayal. I took out my phone, snapped photos of the screen as evidence, and stuffed the laptop back into the bag before running out. When I told Ava, she begged me not to get involved again. She said the threats I'd been getting could be from whoever was helping Miller, but I couldn't stay quiet, not again. That night, I showed my mom the pictures, and she called the police immediately. The next morning, officers came to the school. Students whispered as they saw them walking into Mr. Clark's office. Within an hour, he was being led out in handcuffs, his face pale and defeated. Everyone was stunned. First Mr. Miller, now Mr. Clark. And I was terrified, because if there were two of them, how many more were there? After that second arrest, things spiraled. The school was drowning in scandal. Parents demanded answers. The principal resigned. Reporters started showing up outside the gates, shoving microphones at anyone willing to talk. And me? I couldn't sleep. I jumped at every sound. My phone kept buzzing with new threats. "This isn't over. We know where you live." One night I heard tapping at my window. I shot up, heart pounding, but when I looked outside, no one was there. Just the dark, empty street. I wanted to believe it was just my imagination, but deep down I knew someone was still watching me. A week later, I got called into the police station again. An officer sat me down and explained that while they couldn't trace all the anonymous messages, they had found something surprising. A janitor at the school had come forward. He admitted that months ago he saw Mr. Miller and Mr. Clark sneaking equipment into the storage room late at night. He didn't think much of it back then, but after the arrests he realized what it could mean. And here's the twist. He claimed there was a third person with them, another staff member, but he didn't know who. The officer looked me straight in the eye and said, "We think you're still in danger. Whoever this third person is, they're still out there." My throat went dry. A third one? How many more secrets was my school hiding? That night, I locked my bedroom door, curled up in bed, and stared at the shadows on my walls. My phone buzzed again. Another message. This time it said, "You should have stopped after Miller. Clark was a mistake. Don't push your luck." My hands went numb. I wasn't just exposing teachers anymore. I was in the middle of something much bigger and much darker than I ever imagined. And for the first time I realized I might not make it out safe.